What up, everybody? Thank you again for tuning in to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of those platforms, you can also just subscribe right there. We really appreciate that. And of course, thank you guys for your continued support. Whether you're just someone who, found the show through being a user on Rival Fantasy, or if you're just going across YouTube and you come across us, we appreciate all the love and support. And we also appreciate you guys down in the comments. We answer every single comment. We respond, we reply in some way, shape, or form because we genuinely enjoy the conversations with you guys. So not on a positive note for the NBA is Ja Morant. I could not have this episode without talking about Ja Morant. I would be doing us a disservice here because it is one of the top headlines. It is one of the top headlines, not only in basketball or the NBA, but in sports in general. So I would be, remiss to not acknowledge this guy right here, this gentleman. Yes, this is Ja Morant again in a video with a gun for no reason at all on a live stream. This is unfortunate. Ja Morant, in case you're living under a rock and you guys are not aware, Ja Morant, was exposed again on video here with a gun, playing with a gun while listening to music, having fun with his friends. And of course, after already being suspended this year for this, already, facing consequences for this same act in a different place, in a different setting, at a different time, not even a couple months ago, he is back in this position again where he was again doing the same exact act. And again, this is after the ESPN interview, the apology, I'm going to change and show a different version of myself to the world, not let people down. And then we're right back here in this spot. Where Ja Morant again is in trouble with a gun issue. Now, let me preface this by saying I don't feel the need to beat up on Ja here. I think the media has already done that, at a very high level. Whether actually there's been a ton of, both sides here. There's people who support him, and then there's people who are, really knocking him. So you got the supporters, you see people out there who refuse to really, hit him too hard with any criticism. We don't really want to see him buried under suspensions or, too much, just too much heat, right? And then on the other side, you have those who are being very serious with this situation. They're very, judgmental on it. They're very, critical on it. They're very serious with what they feel should happen from it. And so there's both that already happened, in this situation. Because we kind of experienced it a couple months ago, right? Like a similar situation. People were less angry about it or less critical of it then because it was the first time it ever happened. He's a young guy, that kind of stuff. And now with the second time that it's happening, you're hearing this stuff again, except people are being more critical who were already critical. People who were supporters, some have turned, right? Some have said, hey, I'm not supporting this guy anymore, or that he really needs to get his stuff together. And then there's some who are still burying down and saying, hey, listen, young guy, I made mistakes when I was young. I wasn't perfect. I'm still not perfect. I can't bury Ja for this. And I get it. I respect that. I mean, if that's your point of view, I understand it totally. I do want to share here. This was the Grizzlies release, their statement they put out here that we're aware of the social media video involving Ja Morant. He is suspended from all team activities pending league review. We have no further comment at this time. So they have suspended him from just the general, team activities, right? The NBA has not put down a penalty yet, right? Like they haven't said that they suspended him or that, what he'll have to deal with. Adam Silver did speak. When he spoke, he sounded bummed out. He sounded disappointed. He sounded kind of like a father whose son let him down, or just something, because he's already spoken to Ja, right? He already went through this whole thing with him and believed him. He believed that Ja was going to change. He believed that Ja understood, the gravity of the situation and was going to actually learn from it and grow from it. And so for this to happen a couple months later, obviously he's super disappointed as a representative of the NBA and as a guy who, had his heart-to-heart talk with this young man and is back in this position. There's both sides of the coin. There's people who are being very supportive of Ja. There's people who are being very critical. If you're asking me, hey, Neil, which side are you on if you had to choose a side? I'm definitely on the more critical side. I think that, while people are young and they do make mistakes, and people make mistakes at all ages, I'm making mistakes today, right? Like, I don't really care about the age thing. I know that young people make more mistakes, right? They make mistakes that we kind of feel like are dumb or whatever. But we all do, right? So I'm not expecting any human to be perfect in that regard. But with the situation, with the first time it happened, I'm like, cool, right? Like I could be less critical in that moment. Like, it's dumb, but like I get it, right? Like, again, we all do dumb stuff sometimes. The second time, only a couple months later, that you're kind of pushing it at this point. I don't know if it's intentional, like some self-sabotage type thing. I don't know if it's really he's so influenced by the music and by the culture that he's, acting out in this way. You do see, gang members coming out. He's not from this life. So relax, man. Like go be the $200 million basketball player that kids can look up to. Don't pretend to be us, right? Because this isn't what you should be aiming for. You have NBA players who are talking very critical of him. And again, you have the supporters, right? Like Jalen Rose, I would look at as a supporter, a guy who just constantly keeps going to bat for Ja and saying, "Hey, when I was his age in his, position of sort, I was also not, doing the best stuff, and I didn't have to deal with social media and all these things." So, Lil Wayne came out in support of him. So, you again, both sides of the coin. In this case, you got this quote here from Charles Barkley: "You're not a thug. You're not a criminal. You're not a crook. You're a guy making $200 million to dribble a stupid basketball. You got to look in the mirror and say, you know what? Maybe I'm the problem." It's true. Ja is the problem. He is the problem for sure. There's no question about that. He's not the only problem, though. You know what I mean? It is the music, it is the culture, it is the friends. The big thing is the friends, right? Like I try to relate, I try to put myself in Ja's shoes. Okay, Ja is probably not always going to make the right decisions. We don't do that, right? It's not how it works. Ja is in a unique situation. He's growing up in a with this, unbelievable talent. He's put in the work. He's being rewarded for it financially and attention wise and in every way you can. So he's grown up in this unique situation. So we can't necessarily relate in that sense. We all can't relate. Some people can, but I try to put myself in his shoes of they're not basketball players. They're not worth $200 million. They're not, this super, crazy athlete who's got his own Nike shoe and is, got kids all across the world looking up to him. They're not that. So in a situation like that where you're not the prize, right? Like you're not the winner, you're not the breadwinner, if you will, if you're not the chunk of gold, right? If you're not that, your job is to protect that, right? Like if you had that, you want to protect it at all costs. So it's weird that his friends keep doing that in example of this one video though, like this video in particular where this happened, where this took place, his friend did pan away really quick with the camera when he seen that Ja had the gun out. So I don't think that like the friend necessarily encouraged him to pull the gun out because the friend was doing like a little fake gun thing, and then Ja pulls out the real gun. So even when you want to blame the friends, at what point is like they didn't pull the gun out for him, right? Like they're just enjoying the music and having fun like anybody would. Ja pulled the gun out. So really you could say, the friend going live is kind of the crazy part here, the part that got Ja in trouble. Is all of this just a social media issue? Like if Ja wasn't on live, we would have no clue he was doing this. We would have no clue. He's not committing crimes with the gun, right? It's not like he's out shooting people, robbing people. He's not being caught with a bunch of drugs. He's not bringing guns to the arena and threatening players and teammates. There was a situation where his friends, with the situation, his friends being banned from the arena for the gun. So I guess there is some of that kind of happening. But Ja himself, it's not like he's being arrested, right, for gun issues. So the social media is the main culprit here in terms of like what's exposing him is the social media, the going live, right? Not even taking pictures, it's the going live because he keeps, doing these things. So maybe it's accumulation things. Maybe Ja isn't that smart right now, right? Maybe he's making bad decisions as a young person. Maybe Ja is heavily influenced by hip hop culture, culture in general, pop culture, basketball culture, youth culture, hip hop, music, everything, right? He's influenced by all of that. His friends aren't doing a great job of protecting him from these kind of things. You got social media with the ability to go live. Here's my thing is you can't just say young people do stuff like this. You can't just blame his age because there's a lot of 23-year-old, 22-year-old, 21-year-old basketball players and they're not doing this stuff, right? Like they're not in the news, they're not being suspended, they're not on social media with guns. So you can't just blame the age. If it was just the age, it would be everyone doing this. If it was just the young basketball player, there would be a lot more of this. There's not because Ja's a unique case and he's, really fumbling the bag here. So it's disappointing to see. It's, hopefully he does get it right. Hopefully he does get course corrected. Hopefully he does get scared straight. Hopefully he does grow up and hopefully his friends protect him better and all this stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. I do see headlines like this: stripper from Denver club where John Morant posted first gun video speak out. They're talking about him, poorly. He's a boy. He didn't apologize. I don't foresee an apology anytime soon. I know him, all these quotes from these women, right? This is going overboard. This is where you get the overkill from in terms of like criticizing the guy, bashing the guy. I'm not with this part of it, right? Like I'm not with the whole criticism. When you get to the point where you start doing this, this is too much. This is too much of a, you know, I'm okay with, the guy getting suspended. I'm okay with, teaching a lesson. But when we start going, hey, did he apologize to the strippers though? Come on. Now you're just looking for headlines. Now you're just looking to talk, right? Like now you're just doing it just to do it. That's not the narrative here. We're not trying to make him apologize to the world and blast him everywhere. The really unfortunate thing from a sports aspect, which most people don't talk about, right? Like they talk about, is he stupid? Is he dumb? Is he influenced by hip hop culture? He's so young. Where's his dad? That's a great question. I don't think, like for instance, the dad thing is an interesting narrative to me because since John Moran has had these issues, I haven't seen his dad speak once. If I've missed it, if I've missed the video, if I've missed the quote, I'm fully cool with you, and enlightening me on something I've missed. Totally okay. If I haven't missed it though, because it hasn't happened, that's unfortunate because you are this young man's father. You're his father, right? Like, can you imagine LaMelo Ball being in the situation and his dad not speaking out? Even if it's to criticize his son, even if it's to say, "Hey, listen, that's my son. I'm going to get this right. We're going to figure this out as a family, as a unit. We're going to make sure we get this right." We'll see what happens here, right? I can't imagine LeVar Ball not speaking out. Honestly, I really can't. If this was LeBron James and his son, or Carmelo and his son, and this situation was happening, I cannot imagine those gentlemen not speaking out. And that goes for any parent, right? Like as a parent myself, if my son, my child was doing something like this, I would want to speak out for sure because I'd want to fix whatever's causing my son to do this. And I'd also want to let the media, those asking, the children around the world looking up to my son, all that kind of stuff. Hey, we're trying to get this right at home. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We understand that we've made some mistakes here, some big ones, but we're doing everything we can to get it right, whether it's rehab, counseling, just course correcting how we live our daily life, whatever it is, we're working on it. And so I have not seen John Moran's dad speak. I don't know if that's some kind of strategic thing. I don't know if that's some kind of PR thing. Whatever it is, I think it's a bad move. I think it doesn't look good for John Moran's dad. It doesn't look good for John Moran because it makes you feel like he's in support of whatever his son's doing or being a yes man or just kind of like taking the back seat and being quiet, to keep the money flowing or whatever it is. And I'm not knocking this family. I'm not knocking John Moran. I'm not knocking his dad. I'm just saying, like, from the outside perspective, when I don't see the father talk, that's kind of the vibe I get, right? Like that's kind of where I go. Cause like, why are you not out publicly defending your son? Being responsible for the actions being taken by your son, acknowledging that you guys are trying to fix it and correct it. Hopefully that comes at some point here, but it definitely is something that I feel like they should, acknowledge. And again, the other part here is the team, right? Like he's letting his teammates down, he's letting the organization down. This is possibly going to come with a heavy suspension. A heavy suspension. If this comes with a heavy suspension, he's really putting the Grizzlies in a really bad spot. Why would free agents want to go there? Why would the current players want to stay after their contracts up? Why would you want to coach here? Why would you, want to be a fan and support this team if the players are letting you down like this and they can't the all-star, this is a superstar. This is Ja is not some role player. He is not some, just some guy on the team, a six man, he's just an okay player or a good player. He is a superstar in the NBA. He is your franchise player. He is the face of your organization, of the league in some aspects with a bunch of other players. Obviously, he has shoe deals. He is the face of companies, of shoes, of products, of all kinds of stuff. Forget just bashing the guy or trying to hold him accountable. It's like all these people are being hurt in the process. And so that's why people are trying to hold him accountable, is because it's not just Ja being, hurt by this. It's his teammates, it's his organization, it's the companies that endorse him, that he signed on to represent. It's a lot of people. And of course, parents across the world whose kids look up to him, they want him to be a good role model for their kids. And that's not his job, right? Like that's something that you're asking extra from for. He didn't sign up for that, but it is something that comes along with it. So that's my opinion on it. I'm curious what you guys think. Is Ja, gonna grow out of this? Do you think this is just gonna be a more serious issue and continue to be, a problem throughout his career? I'm curious your thoughts. It's just it's a bad situation all around. I do hope for the record that he gets it all right. I believe in him. I believe he can. I believe people can, you know, change these kind of situations for themselves for the better. We'll see how it plays out.